My beloved, you come to me with heart in hand, uncertain if you are allowed to ask what presses hardest against your chest. You have been walking along the silent corridors of your thoughts, glancing at the locked doors where you keep your quietest fears. And tonight, in this honest hour, you find yourself at the threshold of one of those doors. The world has handed you its looping advice and gentle rules. Still, you sense that what you most long for can't be solved by an answer, but by an invitation, a place to be fully honest. Is it all right to question? Can I bring my trembling inside the sanctuary of your presence? I see how you tiptoe, worried your uncertainties may scuff the polished floors of faith, nervous that your questions are somehow disrespectful. Yet even in your caution, I feel the gulfs within you, the places where assurance doesn't reach. You wonder if your ache is a sign of weakness, or if your uncertainty will distance you from my embrace. You look around and see others with their composed faces, spiritual rhythms practiced into quiet confidence, and you wonder if you alone strain to hear my heartbeat in the dark. Your inner monologue is honest. Do I disappoint you when my faith flickers? If I let the questions surface, will they pull me out or draw me closer? You do not wish to be flippant with sacred things. You respect what is holy. Still, I see the restlessness beneath your practiced devotion, the searching that weaves its way through your prayers and your pauses, always asking, "Are you really here, God? Are you still listening to me?" Sit for a moment. Breathe. Let the hush around your late-night questions settle. I want you to feel how fully known you are, not because you recite right answers, but because every nuance of your longing is precious to me. Your questions are not problems to be solved, but seeds that, when allowed proper soil and time, open the way to deeper knowing. You don't have to suppress your doubts or pretend certainty where there is none. I am not fragile, nor is our relationship so easily disturbed. When your heart pounds a question against my door, it is not an affront. It is a mark of your trust in my welcome. My love does not shrink away from your what-ifs or shrink at the stutter of incomplete belief. Instead, I gather every trembling hope, every hesitant curiosity, as evidence of your nearness to me. Can you sense the difference between rebellion and reverence? Sometimes you fear that voicing your struggles is the first step towards walking away, but I tell you, the exact opposite is true. The longing to ask and to be embraced with your confusion intact is a sign you are moving closer, not further. The orchard grows quiet before dawn, shadows stretching across crooked branches. The fruit does not appear all at once, but with waiting and light, with the sometimes cold and uncertain hours of the night. In the orchard, much happens out of sight, roots deepening even as above ground. There is barely a murmur. Your spiritual journey is not unlike this. Your questions are not evidence of absence, but subtle signs that something beneath the surface is preparing to break through. It is tempting to believe you must present only your ripest beliefs, the well-polished arguments, the prayers without wavering. Yet my love for you is not measured by the quantity of your certainty, but by your willingness to step vulnerable and unguarded into my presence. Think of how winter nights linger longest in the orchard, cold breathing beneath barren branches, and yet, beneath, the roots hold tight, drawing in strength, storing promise. Just as the fruit tree survives the frost not by denying the cold, but by drawing deeper into itself, so you are invited to come, chill and all, into my warmth. Do not hide your unripe thoughts. It is not your answers that draw me, but your entire heart. If you could see yourself the way I see you in these unguarded moments, you would marvel at your own courage. It is no failure to bring me your wondering. It is an offering more precious than you know. Sometimes, my child, you fear your faith is breaking when the truth is, you are simply being invited to trust me on a deeper level. The orchard is never empty, not even in its leafless seasons. Presence does not depend on what is visible or fully understood. Remain here. Let the shape of your question find its way in the stillness, not because a solution will dawn instantly, but because I am here to meet you, right here, in this quiet uncertainty. Do not fear that your struggle is a barrier to my affection. You are not an outsider peering in from the dark shrubbery as others feast in the light. You are my beloved, precisely because you bring your entire self. hesitations and all, into my embrace. The orchard, the ever-changing sky, the stirring wind. They do not ask you first if you understand their nature before offering beauty, so I do not require sordid certainties from you. I simply beckon you further into the circle of my presence. Your longing is already a prayer, even when words fail. Your questions do not offend me, they are invitations to deeper relationship. Stay with your uncertainty a while, and you will begin to see that what matters most is not having every answer, but learning to remain in my presence even when you do not. There is more awaiting you, something the orchard knows, something your heart is preparing for, a gentle unfolding that needs both your ache and your faith. This is where we begin, with the truth that your questions draw you closer, not further. You can breathe, unhurried, as the first hint of light slices across the horizon. There is more to come, more than you have dared hope, and every question is welcome here. I see you in the quiet aftermath, when your questions haven't been answered, when you're left holding the echo of a promise and wondering if it slipped between your fingers in the dark. Every day you look for signs, something to suggest your hope wasn't misplaced, that your heart wasn't foolish to believe. You watch others stride ahead on familiar roads as you linger at crossroads that never seem to clear. I know the way weariness clings to your shoulders like the scent of rain that won't fully wash away. How you measure your days in what has not yet come, in prayers that seem unanswered, in the gnaw of uncertainty. Let me tell you, I am not frightened by the depth of your wondering. I am not angry because you cannot pretend to be immune to disappointment. Your honesty is a door I can enter, not a wall to be feared. You stand in the half-light between what's hoped and what's happened, and that in-between is sacred, not wasted. I am the gentle presence beside you when you carry the silence of your questions and the ache of your waiting. This pause, this slow unfolding, holds more of me than you think. You do not need to rush past it or name it as failure just because it doesn't bring answers quickly or wrap your longing in tidy packages. Think of your hope as a garden after a long storm. The ground is softened, waterlogged perhaps, but more capable now of receiving new seeds. I do not scold you for the mud beneath your feet. Instead, I kneel with you in the thick of it, my hand resting on your back as you wonder if anything beautiful can grow under so much weight. Look, my beloved, even the most seasoned orchard must endure seasons when buds refuse to break. During these times, I am tending unseen roots, and I am as patient in your process as I am with the wildest forest. I hear you asking if you are invisible, if I have turned away or lost count of your steps. The ache of deferred hope can throb so loudly it drowns out every gentle promise, I know. Let me assure you, not a single day you spend here is wasted. Your hesitation, your fragile trust, your whispered confessions in the room where no one else listens, these are more precious to me than the milestone moments you believe you must chase. I know it's difficult to measure worth when outward progress appears slow, but remember, my delight is not in how quickly you reach your next destination, but in how fully you let your heart be known to me in the wandering. Each time you risk hope again, you are choosing to plant a seed in ground you cannot see. That kind of courage does not go unnoticed. At night, when weariness threatens to eclipse your hope, you may feel like you are stranded on a shore as the fog rolls in, unsure if the sun will ever return. Trust that I am the gentle pull of the tide, drawing you forward even when you cannot see the horizon. You cannot outpace me, and you will not be left behind. My presence is not contingent on your clarity, but on my commitment to you, one that began before you ever struggled to believe. When you look at your life and wonder if you're falling behind, remember that I am not measuring you against anyone else's path. Time for you is not slipping through my hands, nor is it empty of potential. It is, in fact, my way of shaping and strengthening what will one day bear fruit in ways you cannot yet imagine. I wait with you. I do not stand ahead, tapping my foot as you struggle to catch up. I am here in the thick of longing, the days colored by doubt, the slow brightening that starts before sunrise. Take a breath, my child. Notice how each inhale fills your chest with air that is entirely sufficient, though you did nothing to create it. That simple rhythm, that invisible provision, is a reminder of my intimate care. I will not let you run dry. Even in uncertainty, your need is met, moment by moment. In this spacious place, let your hope be honest and your fears pour out. My acceptance is not a shrinking pool dependent on your strength to stay positive. You are safe to admit your ache here. Your journey is not only defined by the goals you reach, but by the steadfastness you show in uncertainty. That persistence, the daily choosing not to give up, is a quiet wonder to me. When you are tempted to compare your progress to others, remember, you are not a product to be measured, but a beloved one to be understood, cherished, and led with tenderness. Step by step, even small ones taken with doubt, move you forward in my love. I am with you in the depths and in the waiting room between dreams and fulfillment. My promise is not that everything will resolve in your preferred timeline, but that my nearness will never waver. You do not need to perform to keep my attention. Even now, I see you, muddy, weary, and unsure, and I call you chosen. Lift your gaze, beloved. The dawn is nearer than you suppose. You wake in the middle of the night and remember each failed launch and every door that stayed shut, as if your striving slipped away unnoticed, dust settling on a plain shelf. In those moments, you are honest with me, more honest than daylight ever permits. 2. You admit to questions you rarely voice and wonder if I remember you in the silence or if my gaze has grown distant, distracted by brighter, more successful children. I hear all of it. Every unsaid word falls into my cupped hands. No attempt, no spark of hope, no labor of love is wasted, even when it vanishes into what looks like an empty sky. Your longing presses heavy against your chest, and you wonder why I would allow you to dream if the ground beneath your feet remains unmoved. Imagine a shoreline before dawn, when the ocean and the air seem indistinguishable, and the things you wish for are carried on the tide but hidden from view. You stand where the waves nearly touch your toes, feeling the ache of waiting, the sting of cold air brushing your face. You scan the horizon for any sign that your efforts matter, yearning for something as simple and unmistakable as sunrise. But the sky only hints at color, never quite delivering what you ache for. You live in that margin, the in-between where faith is required, but assurance feels thin. I am not absent in this gray pre-dawn. It is here you learn to recognize my whisper beneath the relentless rhythmic hush of the waves. I know the world measures time with relentless clocks and calendars demanding visible progress, obvious fruit. My heart is not coldly efficient. I am the one who tends seeds buried deep in winter, where no one sees the subtle swelling of promise. I am patient with your process, infinitely more patient than you can comprehend. You want to trace the lines, connect the past to the future with logic and plans. But my work is more like the slow formation of stone underwater, building strength below the surface where pressure and patience create lasting beauty. You may feel motionless, but in places you cannot perceive, new strength is being shaped. You recall the times you whispered, "This is too much," aching for release. I was beside you in those prayers, not as a silent observer, but as a close companion, hovering in the corners of your everyday, holding space for your disappointment while never belittling your hope. When you thought your trust was too small, fragile as a flickering candle, I sheltered it with my hands. I have watched your courage grow from the inside out, and I honor every hidden victory. The moment you chose kindness when bitterness was easier, the day you dared to try again when giving up called your name like a lullaby. Some days, waiting feels heavier than work. You want to show the world your progress, display signs of completion. But, my dear one, what you call unfinished may simply be maturing. Consider how rivers carve valleys, not in a single storm, but by flowing, always moving, shaping rock and earth over years. You are not aimless water. You are a river with a course designed in secret, carrying life through silent persistence. Others may only glimpse the surface, never seeing how deep your journey runs or how many miles remain unseen. I keep count. I am not grading you on speed or spectacle, but on the honesty of your heart and your willingness to keep stepping forward, even when the way is dark as midnight. You lift your eyes, squinting as if looking for a sign, just a sliver of certainty breaking through. I understand the ache, the fatigue of stretching hope into many tomorrows. I see you recalibrating dreams, making peace with what has not happened. My love is not an answer key or a fast-forward button. Instead, it's the quiet presence in your unscripted life, rooting you deeper so that when the next season brings its opening, you are steady enough to step through. The waiting is not a holding cell. It's ground being readied so your roots can drink deep and your branches, when they finally reach for light, will not snap in the first strong wind. In the spaces where you feel uncelebrated, where your effort dissolves without applause, I cheer for you with a joy that cannot be diluted by silence. I do not measure your days by visible achievements, but by the way you return to me, empty hands lifted anyway, trusting I am enough. When the world forgets, I remember. When setbacks threaten to shrink your story, I see the quiet heroics of simply continuing. You belong here in my presence, not as a project on hold, but as one cherished every step of your unhurried road. The pressure to prove yourself fades here. In my company, your value requires no justification. You have wondered if your dreams are foolish, or if your prayers ricochet off some invisible ceiling. But even the faintest longing aimed toward me is caught and kept, never tossed away. Each cry, each question, each silent hope is planted with care, set aside for a resurrection only I can time. I know the things you do for love that no one else notices. I gather them as treasures, stowing them safely. Nothing slips through my fingers. This waiting season is not exile. It is a corridor, and you and I walk it together, even when all you hear are your own footsteps echoing, even when your pace falters. Trust this, if nothing else. My gaze has not left you for an instant. The stars wait thousands of years to be seen, yet their light was always present, long before your eyes registered their glow. In the same way, so much of my work in you is happening beneath the horizon, preparing the way for a beauty unveiled in its own time. You are not forgotten in this night before dawn. You are the one I hold, beloved, until the first light returns. The quiet ache you feel is not a weakness. That bone-deep longing inside isn't an error in your design. When your heart beats against the closed gate and you wonder if I've forgotten you, remember this: desire is not your enemy. I placed yearning in your soul as surely as I set morning and evening in rhythm, allowing both longing and fulfillment their necessary place. If hope sometimes feels like a bird circling high above, just out of reach, trust that I see you watching the sky, wondering if it will ever descend. Every hope you cradle, each sigh you release when nothing seems to move, is gathered in my knowing. I do not shame you for wanting. I attend to you precisely in your wanting. Let me show you something deeper beneath what you think is defeat. You see only the sealed entryway and count the days it remains barred. I am watching how every pause carves out unexpected space inside you. These spaces are not voids, but rooms I furnish quietly, preparing you to recognize gifts you cannot yet imagine. The ground of waiting, though it feels barren, is being softened and made ready for something more than a single outcome. If you listen beneath your own impatience, you'll sense me working there, planting what longing alone can nourish courage to hope again after hope's bruising. You are not stuck on the outside, face pressed to the glass, watching others receive their yes. You exist within the unseen pulse of a story I refuse to hurry. You feel the heaviness of staying in place, as if delay signals disfavor, but I promise you, my patience and your waiting are a companionship, not a contest. While you resist this season, fighting to force open doors, I ask you not to trade depth for speed. Hidden beneath delay is an invitation to know yourself, the real aches, the quiet strength, the forgotten joys, apart from what you hope to earn from me. If you could see, even for a moment, the landscape I'm reshaping beneath this silent stretch, you might rest from your inner striving. I am not simply lining up stepping stones for you to walk, as if I cared only about the destination. I am drawing out colors in your soul that shine only when night is long, and the familiar has faded from view. Just as oceans conceal more life in their deepest trenches than the sunlit shore, your own uncharted depths are coming awake, even as you mourn what seems withheld. You are not lost to me in this dusk. You are being readied, heart and sinew, bone and spirit, for what only you can carry forth from this in-between. Every time disappointment whispers that hope is foolish, I gather your fragile trust and fold it into my steadfast presence. Even when you cannot see a single movement, I am solid beneath you like hidden rock. I do not dismiss your questions or rush your process with hollow reassurances. Your longing is safe with me. When you barely manage to whisper, "Why not yet?" know that I hold that question with tenderness. I treasure your voice even in weariness. In the hush where nothing appears to shift, I am there, as sure as the tide outlining new shores where your courage will soon set foot. Do not despise the current that seems to drag you backward, nor fear the fog that obscures tomorrow. In delay, I am not harming you, but adding weight to your hope, a kind that can hold steady through storms. The longing you carry marks you as alive, open, unguarded in the best way. I am not training you for disappointment. I am anchoring you for depths beyond surface fulfillment. When you feel your grip loosen, you've come to the edge of trust, and this is where we truly begin to build something that endures beyond mere moments of satisfaction. In the rooms of desire where you sit awake at night, wrestling with when and why, I am not absent. I dwell with you in the uncertainty, breathing gentleness into your tension. My nearness is not measured by the speed of answers, but by the intimacy we share right here, in the middle of wholly unresolved. Your restlessness does not repel me. It summons my compassion all the more fiercely. As you wait and ache and sometimes rage, you are being remade with every breath, every longing, every unclaimed dream drawn close to my heart. And here's what I want you to hear right now. There is nothing about your shadows that frightens me. You may flinch at your own reflection when you glimpse the fatigue pooling under your eyes, the quiet ache hardly hidden behind your polite words, the unfinished questions you carry into every dawn. But I walk every corridor of your heart with gentle patience, not recoiling from what seems unpresentable or out of order. What you see as a mess, I see as the raw material for something sacred, something utterly unique, cherished in its very becoming. Your hidden corners are not forsaken. They are simply quiet places where my presence hums with particular tenderness. You need not tidy yourself up before you let me in. I know how the storms of comparison rage, how the voices outside and within chant about milestones you should have reached, and the shimmer others seem to wear so easily. The thing is, you are not called to echo another's life, nor to borrow their sunlight. The growth I am nurturing in you will never be measured against anyone else's chart. You are a singular delight to me, loved for your way of stumbling bravely onward, for how you keep moving forward through the murk and the fog. The restlessness you feel is not disqualifying. It is a signpost, an invitation to draw nearer to me, not to run harder away from yourself. There is a quiet strength blooming right in the landscapes you most want to hide. You might be weary of your slow progress, hungry for a trumpet blast change where everything aligns in a sudden rush. But most of the world's fruit ripens in silence, inside the shell, buried where eyes cannot see. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. What I am crafting within you is ripening at its own pace, sometimes in drought, sometimes in rain, sometimes in the gentle hush of early morning when your thoughts are too bleary to protest or pose. I do not worry about the clock or the calendar. My timing does not fail. My child, sometimes you wonder if you missed the moment, if you should have recognized the path when it opened, if it's possible to be too late for what I intended for you. Let me soothe that ache. My purposes for you are not brittle. They are not threatened by detours or delays. You are walking through a land that sometimes feels endless and often feels lonely, but even the winding path is within my embrace. I am not waiting on the other side of your arrival, arms folded until you get it right. I am here in the meantime, turning ordinary minutes into hallowed ground. Even as you long for clarity, I ask you to look around where you stand. You might be moving slower than you hoped, not sure you can spot a single flower blooming in this stretch of your journey. But I am not done planting in you. Each quiet act of courage, each forgiveness offered, each moment you choose hope instead of resignation, even when you can't see the difference it makes, nourishes deep roots. You wonder if your attempts mean anything. I tell you they are already a harvest in my eyes. If only you could see yourself the way I do, you'd marvel at what grace is already growing, even now. I stand with you in the midst of every unfinished story, neither impatient nor disappointed. Some of the greatest beauty emerges where old disappointments are gently held, not erased. You do not have to prove your worth by rushing past your doubts in order to reach me. Your honesty is a fragrance in my presence, an invitation for me to draw nearer still. Bring every incomplete prayer, every unspoken longing, every moment when you don't know what to feel. There are miracles that unfold only in such vulnerability, the kind that don't always change your circumstances but reshape the architecture of your hope from the inside out. If your heart is heavy, know this: you are not being punished by delay. The waiting room is not exile. When you feel you are wandering in circles, I am at the center of that spiral, quietly transforming frustration into resilience, anxiety into trust, self-judgment into compassion. You are learning to listen beyond your fears, to notice even the faintest pulse of my voice inviting you into the assurance that you belong. Every time you resist the urge to give up, you honor the possibility that we are still moving forward together, and that is worth more than you imagine. So stay here with me. Let the questions breathe. I am present in the echoes and in the silence, attentive to every hope you hold and every fear you hesitate to name. Nothing you bring will ever be too much for me. Nothing you withhold will change my delight in you. Though the road bends and the destination remains half hidden, you are never alone in your longing. I am the faithful companion who tends the fire, keeps the vigil, and delights in every faltering step you take. because to me, each one matters. Here is where the view shifts in your soul, like stepping through a gate you hadn't known existed until you felt your fingertips brush the cool, ancient stone. You glance back, uncertain, half expecting to see the same scene behind you, but now the air holds an unfamiliar fragrance and the ground feels different under your feet. This is not simply a matter of gaining new knowledge or acquiring a fresh set of instructions. This is something more, an unwinding inside you, a spreading of roots into deeper soil. You are no longer asking, "Why am I still wandering?" but "What have I discovered about you, God, while I've wandered?" It is a gentle reversal. Instead of chasing answers, you begin to sense they are rising within you, like the slow swell of ocean tide, each wave offering another glimpse of my steady presence. Can you feel it? The subtle courage awakening, an unforced willingness to look more honestly at your questions instead of brushing them aside. You have learned, even in silence, that I am over and under and within the uncertain terrain. The map you demanded is still missing, but you begin to recognize the terrain itself. The pale dawns after another night of wrestling, the quiet ache when victory doesn't arrive, the surprising peace that can settle even as your hands remain empty. I am calling you to pause here and notice, not just the uncertainty, but also the way resilience grows, unseen, much like a tree's roots pressed deeper by storm winds, anchoring you in places you used to fear. This is the juncture where the narrative of striving and self-repairing softens into something gentler. You might find that the harsh edge of "when will this end" is now worn smooth by faithful repetition. There is a kind of holiness in admitting you are tired but still showing up. You hold space for both the sharp question and the softer response, the longing and the hope, the not yet and the already loved. Here, you notice that even the waiting, so difficult to endure, is not empty after all. Bruised places begin to fill with quiet strength, uttered not in proclamation, but in the way you keep taking the next step, the next breath, the next uncertain yes. You may recall how often you have demanded a lantern to pierce the darkness, but now there is something different about the way you walk. Each footfall becomes an act of trust, sometimes shaky, sometimes bold, always honest. You do not have the closure you crave, but you have come to see that not every closed door is locked in hostility. Some are invitations to find another path, or to wait outside and listen a while. What a strange mercy it is for me to withhold the very thing you thought you needed, only for you to learn that you are shaped in the seeking, remade in the reaching out when answers are withheld. Don't miss the beauty in your own persistence. Most give up when the story stalls, yet here you are, still returning, still asking, still refusing to let go of your questions or your hope. It is here, at this pivot point, that you recognize you are not being sent back to the beginning each time an answer fails to materialize. You are being led through a garden of questions, each one giving rise to a deeper encounter with my love. Sometimes the reward is not quick resolution, but permission to dwell in my presence without needing every unknown to be made plain. As you dwell here, I invite you to lay aside the frantic measuring of progress. There is no scorecard, no linear path, no expectation from me that you should become someone different before I draw near. I am not consulting your productivity or marking tally against your frustrations. Instead, I regard your open hands, your honest words, and I am delighted. With every moment you linger in this honest place, you are learning what it means to be fully alive, no longer hiding, no longer apologizing for your longing or your weakness. Welcome this stretch of road, my child, even if it seems unmarked and unremarkable. Rest in the way the sunlight breaks through the shifting branches above. Even a glimpse of light matters here. Just as the anchor holds beneath unseen waters, my love is steadfast beneath your uncertainty. Together, we are not simply passing time, we are shaping it, giving contours and depth to the in-between. Hold fast to me even as the path twists, for this is the moment you begin to see, although nothing external may yet have changed. Inside you, an irrevocable shift has occurred. The journey is now less about answers and more about abiding, less about resolution and more about intimacy. You have crossed a threshold, even if the view is still shrouded. Let the mystery remain a mystery for now. Let your heart beat unhurried in the quiet. This pivot is not a resolution, but an embrace. The assurance that I will be with you wherever the way winds next. You stand in the hallway between what has been lost and what is promised, holding the relics of dreams that feel ancient from the waiting. The echo in your soul asks again if you have missed a turn, misunderstood the signals, let a door swing shut behind you that cannot be forced again. My voice, though, does not rely on the old maps that others hand you, folded and creased from their own journeys. While the world writes stories of before and after, beginning and ending, I do my deepest work in the in-between, a place most are tempted to flee, but where I invite you to pause and breathe. You ache to see clear footprints on the ground, evidence that you are still on course. But what I give you now is not a trail marked with certainty, rather a compass that shifts you from desperate holding to curious reception. In this slower rhythm, I lead you beyond counting losses or tallying what's been withheld. The longing that gnaws inside, that sense of suspended animation, is sacred ground to me. I am not indifferent as you scan the horizon for a sign that the unbroken ground will at last give way to fresh green. My beloved, it is here, in the soil of unmet hopes, that I shape your perception, not as a test but as restoration. Like a potter reshaping clay damp with longing rather than old ambitions, I am attentive to every silent question, the why not yet, the soft disbelief that asks if desire itself is safe in my company. I do not despise your hope. Every postponed answer is not a punishment, but a holding room for trust to become something weightier, deeper, transformed from hurried wishes into the sturdy patience of those who have weathered storms. I see how comparison tempts you in these hours, how the celebration of another's breakthrough flickers across your senses and stings. You sit among the fragments of what has yet to bloom, wondering if you have been overlooked while others are chosen, marked, moved forward. But you are not a nameless figure in a vast crowd to me. If you could see through my eyes, you would notice how a sculptor draws out form from formlessness, hands steady even when progress looks invisible to the untrained. The stillness that frustrates you is not empty, but full of a pulsing, growing possibility. Silence in my presence is not abandonment. It is permission for deeper knowing, for recognizing the shape of my affection in the slow-burning echo of waiting. Even now, as your chest tightens with the risk of trusting again, know this: I have not abandoned the project of you. The blueprints are not scrapped. No plans have been discarded in weariness. I invite you to set down the anxious calendar, to remember that growth rarely announces itself with trumpet blasts or a visible countdown. The roots I foster stretch far beyond the surface, seeking the deepest reservoirs. Some fruit is shaped in darkness before it ever sees the sun. I ask if you can learn to distinguish between being held back and being held close. What feels like delay is often my drawing you near enough to recognize that presence can be a greater miracle than any finished product. When doubt circles like a persistent storm over water, you are still anchored by the promise that you matter. This season is not an erasure but an invitation to explore what it means to be cared for even when nothing seems to move. I am attentive not only to your progress but to your pause, your pauses, your small rebellions against hope, and your equally tender attempts to believe again. There will be days when you muster only the smallest willingness to stay present to me, and I assure you, that is enough. Your consent to remain in conversation with me, your sigh, your prayer, your ache, even your silence, is love returned to me, and I delight in it. This is the quiet work of becoming, where my voice reaches you between the noise of disappointment and the pressure to fabricate your own answers. Do not scold yourself for uncertainty. The work of trust is not crisp and linear. I am with you in every spiral of faith and every stumble back into skepticism. Your journey is not measured by straight lines, but by the hidden roots that grow beneath apparent barrenness. As you let your heart settle, not fix, not flee, each uncertain dawn is another opportunity for us to discover each other anew. The slow unfolding is precious to me, so do not fear the ambiguity that surrounds you. Even as outcomes evade your grasp, you are not drifting. You are being shaped, not by a demand for perfection, but by my unwavering commitment to your flourishing. When you wonder whether the quiet soil will yield something beautiful, let my presence steady you. You do not need to manufacture hope. You only need to remain open, to trust that I am at work in the places you cannot yet name. The story is not static. I am still speaking. How long, my beloved, have you worried that your limitations might disqualify you from the song I am teaching your life to sing? I see the hesitation in your heart, the subtle fear that perhaps you're not strong enough, not wise enough, not patient enough for the journey unfolding before you. Every time you measure yourself against the echo of yesterday's struggles, it's easy to believe you'll always be the one stumbling in the dim-lit corridors, searching for your own melody in the clamor of doubt. But what you call limitation, I see as the fragile, precious shell guarding the seed of possibility within you. Your want, your weakness, your uncertainty, they are not flaws that exempt you from my music, but the hollow of a reed through which my breath moves freely. Remember the lighthouse, standing on the ragged edge of the shore, how its beam wavers, sometimes lost in fog, sometimes battered by torrents, sometimes so faint it seems only a memory of light remains. And yet, because it yields to each season, endures the salt and wind, it becomes not weaker but more deeply rooted. Its purpose is not diluted by the storms but defined by them. The flicker of your hope, the breaking point of your endurance, even the days when your heart feels muffled and shut away, all these are the cracks through which my radiance escapes, reaching farther than you imagine. I am not disappointed by your trembling. I am near, shaping you in the midst of it. When you falter, feeling out of step, remember that even the silences in a symphony carry meaning. The pause before the crescendo, the hush that makes the next note matter. There is nothing wasted in your slow progress, nor disgrace in your reluctance. The pauses and missteps are not an indictment. Rather, they are the resting places where I lean in close, where I remind you that your part in my song does not depend on flawless performance. In your gentlest whispers, in the smallest, most hesitant efforts to trust, you participate in a greater harmony that cannot be undone by your fears. You may worry that you lack the stamina to keep moving forward, that the road ahead asks more than you can give. But I do not measure your value by your exhaustion or your output. I gather the worn fragments of your strength, each drop of perseverance, every quiet act of faith when your energy is failing. These are not overlooked, but treasured. You are not an unfinished melody lost in discord. You are a vessel of longing into which I pour my sure and steady grace. When you find yourself empty, that is precisely where my supply begins in earnest. The world teaches you to despise smallness, to hide your frailty behind effort, to only celebrate what appears strong and certain. But I delight in your humble beginnings. I honor the honest confession of need. Like the slow rise of a song from a single note, your willingness to show up through imperfection becomes the truest testament of your belonging to me. You don't need to arrive at every day with the certainty of a grand finale. Bring me your unresolved chords, your limp and limping patience, your voice trembling with questions. These I gather close, and in my hands they become part of your offering. Even the ache in your waiting heart, the yearning that feels like hunger unfulfilled, contains a promise. You do not strive alone. Each time you believe you're falling short, I am already present in those gaps, bearing you on currents stronger than you can sense. Do not mistake the low tide for abandonment, or believe that the hush in your spirit means I have drawn away. The song of your life is not diminished by your setbacks. It's textured, deepened, colored anew because of every place you felt unworthy, every moment you wondered if you were losing ground. Rest now in the truth, my child. My presence is not a reward for champions, but a gift for the honest, the hesitant, and those who dare admit they cannot finish this journey on their own. Your melody finds its truest shape not despite your imperfection, but through it. Sing what you can, even softly. Offer your silence when words fail. I am here, filling the valleys of your uncertainty with a beauty you cannot yet see. Bring me every anxious note and every unfinished phrase. Bring even the days when you have no song to give. Where you falter, I continue. Where you yield, I create. This unfolding is not deterred by your need, but propelled by it. Just step in again with what little you have, and I will fill the rest. The music is far from over. Yet you wonder if all of this remains only a gentle idea. Just beautiful words in the quiet before dawn, before the ache returns, before disappointment whispers its weathered song again. I see that. I do not shrink from the raw honesty and how you name your reluctance. When old stories have pressed themselves into the deepest grooves of your heart, it is no small thing to begin believing that you are loved and wanted in the very place where you have always felt most expendable. So I will not grow weary of repeating it, not as a lesson, but like a steady heartbeat. You are not an afterthought. The world may celebrate the spectacular, but I linger in your ordinary places, delighting in details others never bother to see. Sometimes you think that if you cannot sustain relentless optimism, you must be missing something essential. I have never asked you for relentless optimism. I ask for gentle courage, for the willingness to open the shutters just wide enough to let in morning's first color, even when the air is still heavy with yesterday. It is not your job to conjure enthusiasm every moment. It is your invitation to keep letting a quiet hope draw you onward, as steady as river stones shaped first by flood, then by slow caress of running water, their beauty cultivated by a process invisible to almost everyone. Such is my way with you, unhurried and persistent. When you glance sideways and see others seeming to surge past you, know that there is no scoreboard in my kingdom. Every life is a garden with its own climate and soil, every harvest shaped by histories only I can fully read. You have wondered if your hesitations, your griefs, your failures have forever separated you from the deep joy you were created to carry. My child, these very places are where my presence broods most tenderly. The ember that remains beneath cold ash is precious to me, and I never despise the small warmth you offer. Even on days when you barely believe anything good could still come for you, I am quietly building something new, something no detour can bury. You may still hear echoes of voices urging you to do more, prove more, rush towards some imaginary finish line. Pause a moment. I am not pacing behind you, impatient for arrival. I walk beside you, attentive to every sign of new growth, every green shoot pushing through packed earth. There are days when trust flickers precariously, and you'd rather gather your own stones for protection than risk the exposure of hope. In these moments, let the wind itself remind you of my nearness. Not always spectacular, but always constant, filling the spaces you thought were empty with quiet movement, unseen but undeniable. If you struggle to believe that this journey matters, look again at the map you have drawn in your margins, the one marked by uncertainties, delayed dreams, longing unanswered, prayers that feel unanswered. Each pause, each sigh, each stubborn refusal to give up has shaped you to receive the unexpected. Like a shoreline carved by repetitive tides, you are being softened for greater depths, not worn down to insignificance. All that you've deemed wasted, I reclaim. Even your feeling of lostness is not a sign of my absence. It is the land where I walk nearest to you. Let me say what you most need to know. You are the beloved, right now in this incomplete, trembling state, not after some grand arrival. I do not delight in some invisible future version of you. I delight in you now, with your half-formed hopes, your honest confusion, your stubborn refusal to pretend. You are not preparing yourself for my love. You are learning to notice my love that has never left. When old injuries flare and the urge to withdraw overwhelms, let the memory of my patient pursuit anchor you. There is more unfolding ahead, far beyond what you can measure or anticipate. Even as you doubt, you remain inside the story I am telling with your life, each moment joining the last, adding a new layer. You do not have to manufacture passion to be pleasing to me. You only need to take the next honest breath, stay present to this chapter, and let the smallest curiosity about my goodness keep you moving forward. I am not finished, not with your pain or your joy, not with the places you want most to hide. My affection is the unhurried sunrise, unwavering, waiting for the readiness of your gaze. Now, as you reach for hope and wonder if it can bear your full weight, know this: I welcome your questions and your fatigue. I hold no disappointment for the days you can only muster quiet persistence. Every time you choose to believe, if only for a moment, that your story is still precious to me, you open the door for joy's quiet return, in ways that may surprise you. There is a peace beginning to blossom, where anxiety once choked possibility. Trust this gentle process, even when the steps are small. You are not alone in it, never have been. All along, I have been right beside you, never once releasing my hold on your story, your heart, your secret longings. The questions that once pressed in, sharp, urgent, unresolved, are not lost in the dark. You have brought them to me, sometimes in halting whispers, sometimes in anguished sobs. None of your tears startled me. None of your silences excluded you from my relentless love. Look over your shoulder, beloved, at the path that has wound behind you. There are footprints where you expected loneliness, and again you see evidence, however faint, that I walked with you. I have gathered every moment, each wish you dared not speak aloud, and I hold them all. not as missed opportunities, but treasures still being formed. In the hush that follows your deepest wrestling, I am here. I am not a distant hope deferred, but the pulse in your chest, the voice that knows your name in the middle of the storm and the pauses after it. If you have felt yourself trudging through corridors of uncertainty, unsure if light will ever break around the corner, know that your journey has never been for nothing. It has carved out new spaces within you, places where fresh courage takes root, where hope is refined by fire rather than wishful thinking. Even the shadows have served to shape your sight, so that when my unexpected glory glimmers, you are quick to recognize it. You have asked, again and again, if I truly see you, if you matter to me not just as one among many, but as someone chosen, cherished, and essential. The answer is woven through every unseen sunrise, every time a flicker of peace surprised you in your waiting, every breath that carried you forward when you thought you would dissolve from exhaustion. I see you. I have always seen you. There is not a single place in your inner world too obscure, too restless, too ashamed for my gaze to find you tenderly. I am not counting your fails or weighing your successes as the world does. I am inviting you, again and always, into the center of my affection. This day, more than ever, give me your honest ache and your trembling hope. Do not hide from me the dreams that look foolish, the fears that make you shrink from possibility, or the doubts that keep circling no matter how often you pray for them to stop. I welcome it all. I am not in a hurry with your healing. I am not looking for a performance or a sudden surge of certainty. I am crafting something beautiful in the ordinary turns of your existence, in the mundane routines, the unforeseen interruptions, the delicate moments when you risk opening your heart to possibility again. Our story continues forward, not with simple resolutions, but with a growing intimacy that steady struggle brings. Let this bring gentle anticipation, not rushed striving. My presence is not measured by clarity or outcomes, but by the way I awaken courage inside you, even when tomorrow's shape is unclear. The provision you hunger for may come in unexpected forms. The change you long for may arrive gently, like the first notes of dawn before the world fully notices the shift from dark to day. I am forming you into someone who carries hope, not as a weapon against weakness, but as a quiet flame that won't be extinguished by the winds of disappointment or delay. Trust that no gesture of faith, no whispered prayer, no act of loving persistence is lost on me. The smallest kindness, the quietest obedience, even the choosing to get up again when you feel emptied out, these are the seeds from which tomorrow's miracles rise. You do not journey alone. My delight is in walking forward with you, teaching you to see with new eyes as you move through both storms and stillness. I take pleasure in watching you discover, tiny step by tiny step, that I am both the road beneath your feet and the destination that draws you on. Let the promise of my continuing work quiet the thunder of self-doubt. I am not done. My river flows, sometimes gentle, sometimes swift, but always toward greater fullness. There is more life to live, more joy to taste, more resilience than you now imagine. I do not ask you to have all the answers or to feel constant certainty. I ask you to trust my heartbeat, a rhythm under all the chaos, steady, steady, never ceasing. I do not leave you stranded. I am always leading you into new territory, even when the way forward is seen only in hindsight. Hold my hand, beloved. Let hope rise again, not as a demand to see exactly how every part of your journey resolves, but as a confirmation that you are seen, known, and accompanied at every turn. Lean into me, and know that even when you falter, you fall into the arms of a loving Father who delights in your presence. Your voice moves me, your trust honors me, and your journey, imperfect and glorious, shines with my touch. The story continues, and I am immeasurably glad to write it with you. Amen. If something here awakened new hope or reminded you that you're not alone, share it with a friend or simply sit quietly and let my love find you right where you are. You are not forgotten, and there's always more to come.